Welcome everybody. I'm super excited to have you join another coffee series. I'm joined by Casey Rovinelli. Hey Casey.
Hey, how's it going, Ryan?
It's going great. It's good to see you again. As you guys know, the theme for today is about the market that we're in right now and some opportunities and challenges that exist with that. So we're going to dive into that. But before we do that, I just wanted to make sure that we introduce Casey. He's the growth director at OMERS Ventures. Casey, maybe if you could just provide a little bit of background about OMERS Ventures, your focus, and then specifically your role, and then we can get into the topic at hand.
Yeah, that sounds great. So OMERS Ventures is the venture arm of OMERS, which is a Canadian-based pension fund. We have over 500,000 members in the province of Ontario and about 115 billion assets under management. And yeah, we're the venture asset class, or one of the few pension funds, if any pension funds, that does direct venture investing. And we have a presence in Toronto, which is head office, but also Bay Area and London, England.
Great. And maybe a little bit more about your role specifically.
Yeah, so I work on the operations side. I'm sort of 20, let's call that 15 plus years operator. Working at eBay, Virgin Mobile, E-Trade. I had my own agency for a little while as well, doing marketing analytics and automation for VC-backed startups. And I joined OMERS Ventures in 2018, primarily to work with our portfolio companies, the founders and marketing teams on all things growth, so product, pricing, demand generation, all of the things. But I've been increasingly transitioning my role more towards doing a lot of internal product and data analytics for the fund and for the investors themselves. So I'm doing what I love to do, which is build product and drive insights.
Great. Thanks for providing that background. What we typically do with the, which I guess to kind of provide for everybody a little bit behind the curtain, kind of recording this time, so I don't know if it's going to be drinking coffee today. It's going to be a little bit different than that. But we also try and keep it somewhat casual. So before we dive into the topics, like are you doing anything exciting this summer? Do you have any big vacation plans that you want to share with your colleagues in VC private equity?
Yeah, listen, I'm a Canadian father of two, so it involves quite a bit of time up at cottages, various friends who have cottages on lakes. And we're renting a cottage for a little bit as well. So lots of time on the beach, such as it is. Quick trip down to Florida to my wife's American, so our family's down in Florida, so we're gonna go hang out on the beach there. So
that's great. It's important.
Some time off.
It's important to get a little bit of a break with how busy everybody's been. Well, so let's dive into it. This week I pulled up a CNN article and it said inflation was at 9%, Casey, which that hasn't happened in a long time. And it's a little bit different market dynamic than what we've been dealing with in the past, 10 plus years. So I'm curious, like, what's currently, kind of OMERS thoughts or OMERS Ventures thoughts on what's going on in the market, and then how do you all see things up from an investing perspective, and then also specifically from your role as an operations person, how does that fit into? That'd be great context to provide.
Yeah, it sounds good. I think, I've seen a few. Once you've seen the wheel go around a few times, you've been through a few of these cycles. It's it's never great, but that we eventually will push through, and these things do tend to right themselves. But around the office, I do hear investors saying that the bar is going to be higher, certainly for startups to raise financing rounds. I think average valuations, average check sizes are probably going to be a little bit smaller, and just overall, I think based on sort of what we've seen before, there's going to be a little bit less capital deployed. But companies with high-performing teams, that are building real businesses, that are adapting to change, and are tuning up their operations, they're going to be okay. This reset, while sobering, does tend to have a function, to sort of cool things off a little bit in the tech ecosystem. And but yeah, the people who are driving long-term value, they're the ones that are to endure. Some of the ones that were a bit more dubious, I think, in terms of business models, maybe not so much. But and then in terms of us, like OMERS Ventures is sort of like one of the benefits of being sort of a longer term player is we're doing what we do. We're still investing. We're still working with increasingly working with our portfolio companies, both from a capital and from a helping out as asked perspective. And then us specifically on the operations team, I think these times tend to be a good time to reflect on your overall operation and look for efficiencies, across the board in terms of processes and like tuning things up.
Yeah. No, it's interesting what you said there about the valuations. It's definitely a theme that I've heard from others, and just as we check in or have business reviews, where just resetting with founders that, hey, we're talking about valuations for July, August of 2022, not what it was back in late 2021. It's like it's definitely a different world. Well, I guess maybe just going a little bit in an investment that you guys did make in the Series A with Next Matters. Kind of curious, like how that fits into your portfolio, and provide a little bit more details around that investment. I'm kind of curious about how that played out.
Yeah, I love Next Matter. I was an operations person. It's like, oh, goody, an operations platform.
Yeah.
I think when people don't see, they see the splashy deal fundraise announcement, but what we don't see is behind the scenes there are tens of people or 50 people driving checklists that have hundreds of points on it and documents flying around and checks, and it's actually it's quite complex actually to do a fundraising exercise on both on the startup side, but also certainly on the investment side.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we directly experience the thing that Next Matter is trying to solve, which is automating and digitizing operational flows, these long operational flows. I think also just from a macro perspective, as we are heading into a downturn, there really is no better time to tune up your operations, rethink it, and focus on eliminating waste, maximizing the value of your human capital. The whole sort of like operate smarter, not harder is kind of what you should be looking at right now, and Next Matter certainly helps that. As a fund, I think we tend to be big believers in automation and sort of operational businesses that look at operational efficiency. A couple of recent other investments that come to mind are Ultimate.ai, which is automating customer service chatbots, Finoa, which is automating some of the complexity of managing different tax regimes, and DeliverEct, automating some of the back and forth systems in food delivery, and a Canadian company called Work, WRK, which is really looking at automating discrete tasks for individuals. So efficiency in operations is key. So and certainly with the setup at OMERS that we've got, including Affinity and a bunch of other tools, we're tended like to practice what we preach.
Well, it definitely resonates with us at Affinity because of we don't want people manually inputting in data, especially contact or records, things like that. So that definitely resonates. I guess just maybe looking more in the OMERS side of things in terms of how you work and operate within your deal flow process. Are there certain things that you guys have been investing in automation in there, and anything that you can kind of outline for us?
Yeah, I think my team is pretty obsessed with two core things. One is delivering insights into the business to our investors, and delivering efficiencies. And so, like most of the industry, a lot of the work that we've been doing has been on the sourcing end of it. How do we take different types of data? How do we drive efficiency in deal flow and find companies to invest in? Increasingly now, we're looking at a little lower down the funnel in terms of how do we bring good data to bear in a more efficient manner for the investors to make good decisions about the investments that they make, but also how do we more scalably support our portfolio companies, whether it's through analytics or through connecting the dots between, helping them find customers or people that they're looking to connect with. So the other thing that our marketing team likes to talk a lot about, because I think we're doing a really good job, is even just onboarding. How do we onboard portfolio companies? After the fundraise, it's not just like, here's a check, goodbye. It's like you're kind of joining the OMERS Ventures family, and we want to make sure that you're making introductions, and it's not just a ad hoc thing. It's like we actually have a process now of like, this is how we onboard companies. So.
Interesting. How are you managing that? Any tools?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Affinity is the big one. Affinity does tend to be one of the mother sort of systems of where are the companies, where are the people, and who are they, and what stage are they in. And so, a lot of our automated workflows are actually kicked off from Affinity. So as the status changes from into Portco, a whole bunch of stuff launches. And so we have a decent amount of stuff that we were doing in Zapier, but increasingly now we're doing we're rolling our own sort of data engineering. We're using a platform called Prefect to manage a lot of that stuff. And Next Matter is going to be a really interesting handoff. So it's I'm really excited to get Affinity and Next Matter working in tandem, because as things change and go into different statuses, we're of course using a lot of the triggers that are sort of native to Affinity, but for some of the other more complex flows, we're going to instrument the throw to Next Matter to kick off different processes.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like this is an area that, a lot of folks are investing in with Workato, Tray, et cetera. There's a lot there, because there's just so many efficiencies you can gain for stuff that you can quickly automate. That makes a ton of sense, Casey.
Yeah, and listen, speed is just so important. You want to be quick with a no if you're going to give a no. If it looks like we get conviction on a company, we want to move pretty quick. But you still have to do the rigor of diligence. But so anything that we can do to take a process that used to take a couple days for an analyst to do and compress it is super important and a differentiator for us.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. So maybe going a little bit deeper into what's pretty core to Affinity with relationship intelligence. Where do you use relationship intelligence in your kind of deal flow or deal outcomes as you go through that process today?
Yeah, well, as you know, you get a lot of VCs on your platform. You talk to a lot of VCs. It's a relationship-driven business, so we hence why Affinity is so great. When we put Affinity in, the sort of mandate was like, we need Affinity because we need perfect information about who's talking to who knows who, and the relative strengths. And we just you can't expect an investor to keep accurate contact information. Like thinking of a partner sitting there, putting detailed contact info and creating a record in Microsoft or Dynamics fundamentally hurts me to think about that. Yeah. So it's great. So anyways, yeah, I think we use it on a number of various. Sourcing, of course, is key, and so that involves things like having affinity lists for people we want to keep in touch with in the industry, and knowing, because you guys can see interactions back and forth and events, we'll know if we're keeping in touch enough, or if there's somebody that's sort of slipping between the cracks. When we do find a company that is interesting, understanding do we know the person and who knows them better. The one thing I will say about OMERS Ventures is we are one of the few VCs that are truly transatlantic. So we're investing, like I said, out of 3 regions, out of 1 fund. So we are really one team, and investing all truly globally. And so it's important for us to have that central repository. But listen, we do a lot of calls from a diligence perspective as well. And whether it's just getting smart around an industry or getting smart around a founding team, it's important, it's important for us to have access to understanding who knows who and what experts do we have on file that we can talk to. But even once we do beyond the deal process, we are quite frequently asked by portfolio companies for introductions, and that's anything from potential customers to a founder wants to get smart about a certain region, and so it's just having all that stuff at our in Affinity at our fingertips is super important.
That's great. The last time we talked, you said something that I've actually stolen from you, Casey.
That's great.
I got to mention it. Yeah, well, you said something. I'm paraphrasing. This is how I say it. You said, investors go to sleep, but Affinity never does. Never goes to sleep. It's always there in the background running. And kind of what you were saying, where you maybe can't control whether an investor inputs information, but you can control it because Affinity's always on. So anyway, I thought I'd mention that. If it's trademarked, I think I might owe you a few dollars or cents.
Well, yeah, come on, Brian. You probably said it. You probably said it more eloquently than I did, but
probably not.
But it's true. Like it's truly like step one was getting the data in there, and then where we've been having a lot of fun on the data side is also using the API to extract some of that, and we're starting to actually do some interesting workflows around like, hey, investor, you actually met with these people last week. The system knows that, but we needed a little bit of information about this contact, or hey, did you want to send a follow up whatever to that contact? So we're actually using it not only from an analytics perspective, but we're also having it drive workflow.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Are there, it could be outside of Affinity, but are there other data sources, things that you all are using that kind of fit into that flow as well?
Yeah, I think I sort of in building internal product, I try and use the minimal amount of technology to accomplish what you need. And so what I mean by that is, heck, if it's a little bit of Python that creates an Excel doc that I email, that's fine, for phase 0 or phase 1. And so just to use a real example, we have a pretty robust data-driven sourcing product that we've built out. And it truly did start with, scripts in Excel and email, but then we sort of moved to Airtable, sort of like the central repository for this stuff, because we could push and pull through an API. And then, Airtable begat Affinity, and we started, actually implementing workflows into Affinity. And now, sort of graduated from Zapier was where we started from a data engineering perspective, and we're now, like I said, rolling a lot of our own data engineering work. So I guess just as a sort of like overall theory is, if you want to drive innovation, it's not my quote either, but like the best way to drive innovation is to reduce the cost of failure. So, better to get something out there quick, see if it's valuable, and if it is, then you start hardening it from a product standpoint. So I would add to that I guess that's saying too, is that like, reduce the cost of failure, but also like shorten the time to value. That's all we truly treat this like a product marketing function, even though it's just our internal users that will ever see the stuff that I'm building. It's better to find that sort of vein of value and build there. But yeah, sorry, long answer to a short question, but we've kind of used them all. We're tool people around here, and always better to buy something instead of recreating the wheel. You should never build your own CRM. You should never, do all kinds of stuff you shouldn't do. And it's only when your use case is a little bit weird, or there just isn't anything in the market that does the thing that you need, then you can sort of script it out. We write a ton of our own code as well, but we do tend to like to stand on the shoulders of giants with our tech stack.
I appreciate you sharing the detail, because there are quite a few folks that are starting to invest in data, putting things together kind of on their own, and it's just a common thing that comes up. So appreciate you sharing the story.
Yeah, and not to talk too much about Affinity, but but we probably should, I guess. But the Zapier integration is great. So like if you're not going to get in there and you don't have a Python developer and you don't want to mess around with APIs, you can do a lot to connect Affinity to other systems just using the sort of the Zapier stuff, and it helps you learn the API and get smarter about that stuff. and then eventually you start hiring people smarter than you who know how to do the actual code, and then which is where I'm at now, which is lovely.
Yeah, and then it evolves.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, we try and keep the coffee series concise. Folks can get on to the part of their day, but any other advice you'd like to share with folks that are on the line? Could be about what we were just talking about, or something as people are starting to, manage operations, manage platforms. Any advice you'd like to share?
Yeah, I just a few things. And again, I'm so happy that I get to do what I do every day. It is really fun to build internal product and to work with teams where your customer that you're actually servicing is like right there in the office. Sometimes literally and sometimes metaphorically. But I think just a few things maybe to keep in mind is, definitely start with a clear, actionable result in mind. I'm a tool guy. I would implement tools just for the sake of tools, but I have to resist that nature sometimes and really say, what am I trying to accomplish here? What's the value I'm trying to drive? And then, but then, don't get too precious about it and just get in there and start trying to do things with the thought in mind that you want to drive value as soon as possible. You'll see it in the people's eyes when you do it and you deliver that value and you're improving their work lives. And definitely resist that temptation to be perfect. You won't be perfect. You should be embarrassed about some of your first product, but and then I think the only other big piece of advice I'd say that sort of helped us is wherever possible, specifically for internal product and internal operations, hook whatever you're doing into an existing process where it exists. And what that means is, like for our example of that is for our data-driven sourcing, if we just emailed out leads and said, hey, here's some cool leads, I don't think we would get a lot of traction. Maybe we would because our team's pretty good, but we hooked it into the Monday meeting, where it's like there's a cadence for like leads are delivered, they're presented to you they're to the investors in a pleasant experience, but they know that on Monday they're going to review the list. And so over and over and over again, if you do want to drive an action, number one is absolutely driving value, but a close second is, have that hook into some kind of operational process where it's going to be top of mind, and they know that they're going to have to sort of like stand up in front of the colleagues and talk about kind of stuff. So I don't want to say carrot and stick, but you could say carrot.
Yeah, that makes sense. Great. Anything else, Casey?
No, that was fun. That was great.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time for the coffee series. I know that you've been traveling this week, and thanks for making time for us at the end of your day. And hopefully I'll see you at Affinity's campfire in a few weeks, and we'll talk to you soon. See you everybody.
Bye, everyone.